All right. Welcome to this week's Current Affairs Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. This is Michael Turton.
Hi. Good to see you all again. A lot to talk about today. You were just telling me about Hou You-yi, the mayor of New Taipei City, which is the largest city by population in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And Hou is a major player in the KMT and the KMT mayor of New Taipei City. What were you telling me?
Well, okay, yeah, for context, he's probably the most popular KMT politician in the country right now.
Yes.
He's generally well-liked. As far as I know, he's doing a good job, as mayor of New Taipei. His approval rating's quite high. So what's very interesting is he just turned down a request for him to be on a committee to, one of these elect Han Kuo-yu committees. He turned it down. He said, I'm too busy being the mayor of 4 million people, and that's my job.
So he told a guy who left the mayorship of his city to run for president that he was too busy being the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Burn!
And we go back. You remember when the KMT had its whole big, anointment ceremony to announce Han Kuo-yu as their official candidate, who didn't show?
Hou You-yi wasn't there.
Right. And where was the whole big conclave held?
It was in Banqiao, which is
a few blocks away from...
It's in New Taipei City.
It's in New Taipei City, where Hou You-yi's office is located, and he didn't show up. Now, there was a few other politicians who didn't show up at the time, but they were small, and they were sort of from the south, like, the commissioner of Penghu, There may have been legitimate reasons for not showing up. But for him not to just simply go down the block, just across town, that to me seemed like it was a message. Now this is another message. I feel like one of two things is going on here. One of two or three things.
Yeah.
Here, I got a couple of guesses.
Go ahead, speculate. I'm ready.
So, one is, I think it's pretty obvious he's distancing himself from Han Kuo-yu.
Right.
I think that we can...
He's the former chief of police for the whole nation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, at one point, the DPP attempted to recruit him.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what he knows.
Mm-hmm. Now that's concerning. Here's another thing. So he's distancing himself from Han. Now, there's one part. He could be distancing himself from the party, but that doesn't seem to be what's going on. But it's possible. He also could be setting himself up as another potential candidate.
You mean when Han flames out?
So, and speaking of that, I believe that's our next topic, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
Very specifically, there have been two polls out recently that have shown one had 37%, and the other one had 43% of the respondents believed or thought that it would be a good idea for the KMT to dump Han Kuo-yu.
Wow.
Yeah.
40% roughly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So essentially what that means is it looks like the opposition to Han Kuo-yu is hardening.
It's not only that, it's bigger than his base.
Now, be sure to check out Frozen Garlic, because what he's done is he's come up with a ranking and rating system to weight different polls. Some of them he's taking more seriously, some less seriously, and then he's aggregating them all into one number. So this is super, super helpful.
Oh, yeah. That's Frozen Garlic, the
Yep.
blog run by Nathan Batto, the political scientist who's at Academia Sinica.
And I think the last I checked, Tsai, a straight head-to-head race, Tsai was up a few points on Han. Han was at about 36.
Something like that.
And Tsai was at 41, 42. Now, what's very interesting is that both of them are far lower than what the totals were for the party at the time during the last election. So that's interesting. But the part that jumped out at me was 20% undecided or don't know.
The don't know is really kind of shocking.
That's high.
Yeah, that's really high. But also, none of those polls are polls of potential voters. So who really knows what it means?
Yeah. So now you have some things here you got on Han Kuo-yu. I just wrote an article which hopefully will come out in Ketagalan Media this week.
This year?
This year. Hopefully.
This decade?
This decade, yeah.
Before the election?
Yeah.
So anyway, Han had another mahjong flap. Photos of him came out. And, well, to make a long story short, a couple guys got kicked out of the KMT this week for criticizing Han and his habits of mahjong and drinking, and alleged habits of mahjong and drinking, I should say.
And womanizing.
And womanizing.
One of them said that Han currently has a mistress to be, and these, by the way, are
shocked.
People, these are people who are actually fairly close to Han, or at least in theory, should be in the know, and they were both kicked out. And this follows on some criticism. One of them was a central committee member. The other one managed for half a year the cross-strait policy committee for Han. So, one was in Han's camp, and the other one was a KMT oversight guy.
Yeah, they have to know what they're talking about. Otherwise, they wouldn't be saying that. I mean, and Yang Qiuxing, do you guys remember him? Yang Qiuxing was a DPP politician who had a spat with Chunju way back in the day to see who would be the mayor of Kaohsiung, and he lost. He was the former Kaohsiung County magistrate back when Kaohsiung was divided into a city and a county. So anyway, he left the DPP, went to work for the KMT, and actually ran against Chunju one time and got crushed. But he got his revenge in the last election because he was Han Kuo-yu's campaign manager, and it was his people out in the hinterlands of Kaohsiung who helped organize Han's win. And what happened to him this week?
He came out. He was the one who called Han Kuo-yu a drunk womanizer, gambler. Said he spent more of his time doing that, and then the KMT kicked him out.
He seems to have felt that he created a monster, as the saying goes.
I wonder how Wang Jin-pyng feels about all of this. I really do. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So anyway, that makes what? 3 guys this week. The last couple of weeks have been booted from the KMT for saying the same things about Han Kuo-yu.
I think 2 have been booted. I think the third one because it was an analysis in a private meeting. I don't think they kicked him out.
Oh, okay, but it got leaked then.
It got leaked. Yeah. It was the standing committee, election committee. Anyway, he was one of them, and he gave a general analysis overview, and the news picked up actually on his comments about Han drinking too much, and his call for Han to stop drinking. But actually, in the article that I wrote for Ketagalan Media, I actually took apart all of his other criticisms and concerns about Han as a candidate. It wasn't the drinking part that I thought was the most interesting. It was his concerns about Han as a candidate. And his we talked about this, I think, a little bit last
week. Yeah.
So be sure to just watch or listen now that we have the podcast of that up.
So meanwhile, the what would you call a dance in 3 parts? A waltz between Ko Wen-je, the mayor of Taipei, and Guo Taiming, the former head of Foxconn.
3 to tango, I think.
I don't know. and Wang Jin-pyng, the unofficial head of the Taiwanese KMT, and one of the most powerful men in the KMT, who also helped organize Han Kuo-yu's victory in Kaohsiung. It was his factions mobilized in the city that helped bring out support for Han. So you've got Wang and Guo Taiming and Ko Wen-je talking about what's going to happen this election, who's going to run. And so far, nothing's come out yet except that Ko Wen-je denied he ever wants to be a vice president. So if Guo Taiming runs as an independent, you were talking about how the most likely scenario is what? Who's going to back Guo Taiming?
Well, I think I mean, let's put it this way. If I were Guo Taiming, I would want to try and get Ko Wen-je and Wang Jin-pyng both on board for different reasons.
Right.
If I were Ko Wen-je, I would probably also want to get the other 2 on board. the one that doesn't, the one pairing I don't see working if it's just two together is Wang Jin-pyng and Ko Wen-je. They don't have a lot to offer each other.
No.
The one thing that Wang Jin-pyng absolutely needs for any of these to work, either just working with Terry Gou, Guo Taiming, or with Ko Wen-je, is he needs Terry, or if he's doing an all three with Ko Wen-je, is he needs to make sure that he's got Terry Gou's money, so that the patronage factions that he's sort of the unofficial head of, that these patronage factions get their money flowing to them, the patronage. And so for Wang Jin-pyng, I think Terry Gou has to be part of the equation. Whether Ko Wen-je is or not, I think is secondary to Wang Jin-pyng. For Terry Gou, Wang Jin-pyng is very important because he's got the ground game, and Ko Wen-je because he brings in voters in a demographic which is different.
Right.
But Wang Jin-pyng needs Terry Gou's money. That's the one. I think Ke wants Terry Gou's money. Wang Jin-pyng needs it because if he really wants to get that ground game, those factional politicians out there, motivated and excited and backing any of these arrangements, he needs that money.
He's got to have it. That's right.
I think that's the only scenario that would work for him.
Nathan Baddo's analysis showed that, as all of us had intuited, Ko Wen-je hurts Tsai Ing-wen more than Han Kuo-yu if he enters the race as a presidential candidate. But it's looking like he's not going to do that. Mm-hmm. I think he actually wants Guo Taiming to run. This is what he keeps saying.
Now Ke got kind of smacked down here because he started talking rather more than he was supposed to, and he may or may not have been telling the truth. He came out and said that, and that's why this Sunday there was theoretically going to be a meeting between the three of them. However, the other two pulled out from meeting with Ko Wen-je and basically smacked him publicly because he was talking too much. So what we don't know is whether, they say that, Ke was making it up. It could also be that it's true and Ke just can't keep his mouth shut. So, whether the cooperation is on or off is still, we don't know. We don't know if this is, just simply a warning to Ke or what. He said that he was offered, and I thought this was interesting, to be VP and Premier simultaneously by Terry Gou. Now, that actually would be a pretty sweet deal for him, but he said he turned it down.
Yeah, there's nothing that says the premier can't be the vice president. So
it's happened before.
Yeah, people have talked about that before.
I think it's Lin Jian, I think, did that for a while.
Did he? I think you're right. Yeah, that's right.
I think he was also defense minister or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like he held 2 or 3 of these posts simultaneously for a while under Li Denghui.
Yeah. Okay, so what else is going on this week out of Washington? Washington has decided to sell us 66 F-16s. Yahoo! Which Rupert Hammond Chambers, who runs the U.S.-Taiwan Business Council, said was the biggest defense sale, the most important defense sale of the last 25 years. So that's huge.
Yeah.
It's a strong signal of U.S. support for Taiwan. It's and Taiwan is saying, look, we'll buy these things, just give us a trade deal or something like that. It's a signal that Taiwan will play ball with the U.S.
Bipartisan support.
Yep.
Strong bipartisan support.
Yep. So, and we need planes. We need all kinds of stuff out here if we're going to hold off the Chinese.
Yeah. So, there's good news and bad news on that front. Tsai Ing-wen's government, when she campaigned for president, she campaigned on the defense budget being 3% of GDP. It was about, 1.8 or 1.9?
Something like that,
under Mine Joe. And she's bumped it up. She got it up to 2.1 this year. Next year's budget has it bumped up to 2.3%, which is still a far cry from the 3% that was campaigned on. So that's one of Tsai's weaknesses. But on the other hand, if their numbers pan out, Taiwan will have the first balanced budget since 1999 next year.
Wow, no kidding.
I mean, obviously there could be a revenue disruption, or they could, some big disaster and they'll spend a lot of money on it, or, there's a lot of things that could screw that up. But for the first time, they actually are projecting a balanced budget next year.
That's not all they're projecting. The economy is supposed to go up too, faster than the other Asian tigers.
Yep.
You wouldn't know it from looking around you, but we're doing really well. Well, actually,
speaking,
you wouldn't know it from listening to people talk.
Yeah.
But if you look at the numbers, minimum wage has gone up, and they're going to rise. They're going to raise it again. The military budget increase is 8.3%, which is the biggest since 2008.
Yeah.
So if you look at the numbers, the problem is, as always, the Tsai administration can't get people out there believing that the numbers are actually good.
I mean, part of it is that, and this was very much true also under Ma Ying-jeou, the economy did fine under Ma Ying-jeou according to all the figures.
Right.
But the problem was that people's wages were stagnating.
Yeah.
And they are actually now moving up, partly because of the minimum wage raise, but also because the economy's done fairly well. And there's been incentives to bring a business back from China. So I think there's going to be a lot of wage pressure. And there's been some up to this point. So for the first time, wages have been rising. Unfortunately, not fast enough or for enough people that I think everybody goes, oh my gosh, the economy's booming. It's some people are feeling it, but not everybody. And so it's easy to say, oh, the economy's bad, even if it's fine. And it's fine. That's really what.
And then there's the blue media out there constantly pounding that theme. They did it against Chen Shui-bian. They did it the first time. They've been doing it every single election.
Yep.
Since the 2000 election.
And here's something I posted on Facebook, which is this sort of flip between the KMT used to be the party of we're rational, we're the technocrats, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And now, outside of Hou You-yi, it's much more become a party of it's Terry Gou, it's Han Kuo-yu, who are popularly characterized as populists, rabble-rousers. That's the term they used to use for the DPP.
Outsiders.
Rabble.
Populists. Remember
Populists,
when Hong Xiu-zu went on that whole
outsiders.
populist equals Nazis things?
And
that was her theme.
And now the DPP's big problem, like one of the big reasons they lost in Kaohsiung, is because they're considered nerdy technocrats who are uncharismatic.
Yeah, out of touch.
Who do things like balance the budget, So there's been kind of a flip in perception, I think, of the two parties, and I think this is going to be a big problem going forward for the KMT.
Right. What is Han Kuo-yu's campaign? He was just saying the other day, Taiwan is going to be safe and wealthy. No details on this. When we get details, I'm sure we'll laugh our asses off, actually. But he's just going to repeat that, safe and wealthy.
I suppose he could hand over Taiwan to China for a lot of money. That would keep Taiwan, in theory, safe from an attack, and basically bribe off all the population. Maybe that's his plan.
I have no idea.
I don't think he'll do that. I'm just kidding. I don't think he'll do that.
This week, another one of the political parties, the New Power Party, had a huge crisis. What happened? Who left the party this week?
Hong Zi-yong.
Oh, Hong Zi-yong.
She's actually the legislator from my district. So.
Yeah, that's right. We have the same legislator now.
Yeah.
I think that must mean we're related. It's one of these local things, right?
Yeah.
同立委, 同姓, 同生日, 同立委.
Yeah, that's definitely a Taiwanese thing. It's like they keep in touch with all their elementary school classmates. We both have the same mayor. But yeah, so she left the party following Freddie Lim. So basically, Freddie Lim left the party my theory was that was to try and galvanize the party to come together, unify, to back Tsai Ing-wen.
Right.
So then Han Di-chiu, the party chair, went out and started negotiating with the DPP to try and work out an arrangement whereby the party could cooperate. But there's a 15-person committee that the chair is chosen from, the Central Committee, and clearly, and then he resigned abruptly. And so it's pretty clear. I don't buy the reasons that he gave. Maybe that's part of it, but I think that he couldn't get a consensus to back him. I think that's really what happened there. I think that there's a lot of people who agreed in the party with Wang Guochang that they shouldn't be a quote-unquote little green party subservient to the DPP. And Han Kuo-yu couldn't pull off the consensus he needed to negotiate with the DPP or the proper backing. So he resigned. That's my theory. The very next day, Han Kuo-yu leaves the party, which means that now the NPP a month ago had 5 legislators. Now they've got 2. You need 3 to form a party caucus. So they no longer have a caucus in the legislature.
Well, Lev Nachman, who's been studying the NPP, has been researching them, is saying on Twitter that he's hoping that the younger members will now step up and fill all those posts. But
well, there's one. I think she's 29. The Taipei City Councilor is stepping up to run for chair.
Right.
And by the way, Wang Guochang, under the current rules, can't run for chair because he's not on that 15-member committee. So there's some talk that he may try and make a play to become the chairman again, but right now, as the rules stand, he can't.
Well, that's very sad. We were both hoping the NPP would turn into something big.
Well, here there is one. There's 2 possible bright sides to this. One is this could become a party with a more coherent ideology.
Okay.
That's one thing. Now, it may marginalize it or make it smaller, but at least there's a consistency. Because right now, it's just splitting and they can't agree. The other possibility is that there is a revolt from the younger members of the party. They take over the party, and because there is a generational gap between the Sunflower Movement and the older members, Huang Guochang and Freddie Lim, are actually in their 40s. They're not really Sunflower generation.
Right.
And Hong Tzu-young's kind of in the middle. She's 36. So, this could lead to a shakeout where this really does become the Sunflower generation's party, which it sort of was before. So it would actually really have the legacy of the Sunflower Movement versus it sort of having it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's a very good chance it's just going to collapse and fall apart. It's now... I noticed I saw an opinion poll just today that had KMT, people who are supporting the parties, KMT number 1, DPP number 2, TPP, Ko Wen-je's new party number 3, the NPP number 4. But here's something I found interesting, is that the Green Party and the Taiwan State Building Party both now are bigger than the PFP.
I'm sorry, what was that party you just named? The PFP. The PFP.
Yeah, I know. The one that only had like 30-some-odd% of the legislature at one time.
20 years ago.
The NPP didn't even register. Neither did the TSU. The NPP not registering to me suggests that they didn't interview anybody in Jinmen or Matsu. But I'll make an unusual pop reference here. Is the dream of the 80s is alive in Jinmen.
God, you have been here a long time.
That's a reference to Portlandia.
So another party crisis was, well, quote unquote party, the China Unification Party run by Zhang Anle. Mm-hmm. The former gangster, the famous one, White Wolf, was indicted for illegal donations.
Mm-hmm. And only a few days after he came out in support of Han Kuo-yu. Him and his party came out and said, we support Han Kuo-yu, and then they were indicted.
Yeah.
So, and what were they indicted for? I thought this was interesting.
China money, wasn't it?
Yep. But also, it was handing out cash, 10,000 NT packets of cash, after the Hualien earthquake, to survivors to show China's goodwill.
Ah, right. Yeah.
I thought that's an interesting one. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty weird, actually.
In Taiwan, you can get indicted for illegal donations just by donating to a temple and asking them to support you. So the laws here about that, as opposed to almost everything else involving campaigns, are pretty strict.
Yeah.
You can't give anyone a gift over, what is it, 30 NT, right?
Yeah, or 29 or something.
Something like that. Yeah. That's why they're always giving you Kleenex things and pens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because those are below that limit.
Yeah. Yeah, as Han Kuo-yu famously put it, a bottle of Rotao Fan and water. You know, a bottle of water and Rotao Fan.
Rosal Fan, huh?
I think it was, wasn't it?
He has being Taiwanese mastered.
Yeah.
That's his appeal.
And he's from a mainland family that came over in 1949. His parents were soldiers, police soldiers. His family was military. It was Terry Gou's family were
was
police.
the police, yeah. So, and what's happening, speaking of temples, there was a funny news item this week about Chinese tourists in Japanese temples leaving curses for Taiwan independence people. So if you independence supporters out there have accidents or trouble, you'll know where to go to resolve these issues.
Japan. So this is very interesting that that Chinese ultra nationalists would go to Japan to create curses for Taiwanese. I wonder if there's like a message in that choice. I don't know. And speaking of really good articles, did you read Tanner Greer's latest on the Scholars Stage?
About?
That China is partisanship in China.
No, I didn't see that one yet.
Oh, it's an excellent piece. Be sure to check it out. He's talking about how in a lot of the arguments, it's not so much about winning; it's more about identifying who's on your side. And so, a lot of what the Chinese are arguing about, like for example, in Australia and all of this, is it's not so much about the truth of the argument; it's more about rallying to your side.
Right.
And you see a lot of this dynamic play out on the internet. Sometimes people will argue a point that's not necessarily actually true or accurate. It's more about proving something to your side.
Identifying as a tribal member. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a good piece. Check it out. Tanner Greer on the Scholars Stage. So.
All right. I guess that wraps it up for this week.
Yeah.
I hope you'll find us here on YouTube for the video and on SoundCloud now for the podcast.
Yeah, well, right now that's a test account. It's on. I'll be posting up on the Facebook page. It's basically just using a personal one. Later, I'll set up a proper account. Once we've got the sound good enough. Last time it came out that one of us was on the right, one of us was on the left. This time, in theory, it sounded like from our testing here that that's not the case this time. So hopefully this time it'll sound good enough, and then we'll set up proper accounts, and we'll send it out on iTunes and Google podcasts so that everybody and anybody can listen to us all the time.
All right.
Anywhere and everywhere.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you again next week.
Yes. Oh, and hit subscribe. I think if we're on YouTube, I think it's down there. All right. Look forward to next week.